headline loss, but the underlying numbers show its operations are making more money. Nampak takes an important step on its road to recovery as it improves its trading margins and reduces its debt. We prepare to say goodbye to Jaibar and hello Zeronia. Discovery Bank CEO Hilton Kelner is in our studios tonight with his Christmas reading list, and from 7:30, the life and times of a political analyst with Dr. Ralph Mateja. All of that to come, but first, the very latest Eyewitness News.
Good evening, I'm Maki Molapo. National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola has revealed that one of the suspects linked to the Salisbury mass shooting in the west of Pretoria, was recently released on parole. The attack, which occurred at 4 a.m. on Saturday, left 12 people dead after 3 gunmen stormed a tavern at a hostel and opened fire on patrons. Among the victims were minors aged 3, 12 and 16 who were sleeping in a bedroom inside the tavern. Police have confirmed that while the 3 suspects remain at large, their identities are now known.
The parole did come out in September 2025, come out of jail. We are still verifying the full conviction in terms of charges, but there is attempted murder and extortion-related crimes. So we will, of course, verify. But preliminary, that's what we have.
The City of Cape Town insists its household tariffs are lawful, constitutional and designed to protect lower and middle-income households from paying higher property rates. Lawyers for the city defended its decision to introduce a fixed water and sanitation charges based on property value in a 4-day court battle last week. The South African Property Owners Association and the Cape Town Collective Ratepayers Association hauled the city to the Western Cape High Court to argue against the fixed tariffs. Carlo Peterson has more.
Cape Town Collective Ratepayers Association Vice Chairperson Boewe van Eerms says the CTCRA supports the SA Property Owners Association's arguments against the city.
On day one, SAPUA opened by arguing that the city's new fixed charges are disguised property rates because they are tied to property values rather than actual service consumption.
Boewe says the city should be able to use alternative mechanisms that do not rely on property values for its levies.
Rates may legally be based on property value, but service tariffs may not. CTCRA supported this argument, emphasizing that tariffs must reflect the cost of providing the service, not the value of a person's homes.
The city says Cape Townians benefit from the lowest monthly bills, record infrastructure investment and better service delivery compared to other metros. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
The bad blood between alliance partners, the ANC and South African Communist Party, came to a head this afternoon when the SACP's Deputy General Secretary Madala Masuku was repeatedly jeered by ANC members while giving a speech at the organization's 5th National General Council. There's been friction between the partners since the SACP announced it will contest elections alone and no longer under the ANC banner. The NGC is currently underway at the Burchard Hotel in Boksburg. It acts as a mid-term review of the ANC's progress to implement resolutions adopted at its 55th elective conference in 2022. Thabiso Goba has more.
One of the resolutions adopted at the ANC's 55th elective conference in 2022 was the reconfiguration of the alliance. However, that has not come to fruition, and as a result, the South African Communist Party took a decision last year to contest elections alone. When the SACP's Deputy General Secretary Madala Masuku was delivering his party's message of support, he was repeatedly jeered by the delegates, with ANC Chairperson Gwede Mantashe having to intervene.
Comrades, there must be order. Listen to what Comrade Masuku is going to say. You are in the NGC of the ANC. This is not acceptable.
Masuku eventually addressed the delegates on the decision of the SACP to contest the elections alone.
The decision to contest elections is not to contest the ANC. The decision to contest election is contestation of election. And this matter, comrade, is a very critical matter because it has to do with the existential being of the party. Because if the party cannot introduce socialism as a path, its existence will mean nothing.
Masuku says the SACP still remains committed to the alliance. Thabiso Goba, Eyewitness News, Boksburg.
The South African Weather Service is warning that severe weather conditions are expected to persist well into the late evening. Heavy rains are expected in Gauteng, Limpopo and Mpumalanga today with a chance of hail. The Weather Service is warning motorists to be extra cautious as damaging winds accompanying the rain can potentially knock down trees leading to blocked roads. Tshwane EMS spokesperson Nana Khadebe says teams are on standby.
The City of Tshwane Emergency Services Department has received a yellow level 2 weather warning for severe thunderstorms from the South African Weather Services. These weather conditions may result in widespread rainfall and severe thunderstorms, increasing risks of flooding and strong winds.
Last week's rains caused power outages in parts of Pretoria, which the city is still working on repairing. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he expects the second phase of the US-sponsored ceasefire plan for Gaza to begin soon and said he would meet President Donald Trump this month. The truce, in effect from October 10th, has halted the war that began after Hamas's deadly attack on Israel on October 7th in 2023. But it remains delicate as Israel and Hamas accuse each other of violations. Under the terms of the ceasefire, Palestinian militants committed to releasing the remaining 47 living and dead captives seized. All of the hostages have so far been released except for the body of an Israeli police officer. Gold's trading at $4,182.16 an ounce. The rand's at 17.04 to the dollar, at 22.69 to the pound, at 19.81 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $62.94 a barrel.
In your sport, the Proteas switched their attention to the T20 series against India. Mohammad Salah reports for training amid claims that Liverpool are trying to push him out. And Lando Norris proud of winning his first Formula One Drivers' Championship his way.
A look at your weather. Partly cloudy skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow with thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 15 degrees and peak at highs of 29. Pretoria is at 16 and 31. Vereeniging's at 15, reaching highs of 30. A partly cloudy day for the mother city, along with light and variable winds at a low of 18 and a high of 25 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola has revealed that one of the suspects linked to the Salisbury mass shooting in the west of Pretoria was recently released on parole.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
In Edenville, heading towards Bedford View, we still have roadwork slowing down traffic. R24 westbound approaching Barbara Road. If you're in the Rivonia area, heading towards four ways, slow-moving traffic. N1 southbound, this is between Rivonia Road and the Pretoria interchange. Also, bumper traffic still. That's leaving Midrand, heading towards Pretoria on the N1 northbound between Allendale and Samrand. If you're in the Roodepoort area, there's also slow-moving traffic on Randfontein Road between Adcock and Corlett, while in the mother city, there's bumper traffic N2 outbound between Mowbray Main and Bunga Avenue. Also, slow-moving traffic. This is on the M5 northbound approaching Berkeley. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the Absa Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025. Good evening, 9 minutes after 6. I'm Stephen Grootes. Welcome to the program. Quite a busy day, actually, considering where we are in the year. Schools are shut already. Most of the courts are closed as well. And in fact, there's been quite a lot going on around what's happening on the JSE. SPAR had their results. Nampak had their results. We'll speak to the CEOs of both those companies in a couple of moments. In fact, we'll speak to Angelo Swartz, the CEO of SPAR, in a moment. Glenn Fullerton is the Chief Financial Officer of Nampak, We'll speak to him in about 10 minutes as well. Nampak really do seem to be on the road to recovery. They really do seem to be getting themselves out of the difficult space they were in and making quite a lot of progress. SPAR as well, if you look at the underlying numbers. Although, I always say this, to be the CEO of a supermarket in South Africa, to have to take on ShopRite head on, not a job I would like. Talking of jobs I wouldn't like, I've made the point a million times, I would not like to be the CEO of Eskom although it's getting a little bit more attractive, I must just say. They've reached a memorandum of understanding today with people who run smelters, the ferrochrome producers. Now, we weren't able to get anyone from Eskom, not for want of trying on their side, I must just say. But we are looking forward to speaking to the CEO of Glencore Alloys, Yapi Fullard, and just talking about it from their end. In the end, the problem with the smelter issue is that you want smelters, they create downstream industries, they employ people directly. But if you look at the electricity that it takes to run them and the pricing of it, that electricity, there's just no way it's going to happen without you and I somehow subsidizing that electricity. That's just how it's going to be. We'll talk about the end of the JIBAR rate as well and why it matters. We'll speak to Deborah Carmichael from ENS about that. Looking forward to that conversation. I saw today at the start of the National General Council of the ANC that some of their workers were outside complaining they hadn't been paid. This has been such a big problem for the ANC over the years. And any political leader you speak to, political party leader you speak to, will probably say the same thing. In the end, the big headache is funding, getting money for whatever it is you want to do. And I think that's probably true of the ANC, the DA, MK, the IFP, etc., etc., etc. No matter where you stand, that's a major problem. But one of the things the workers were complaining about was that they hadn't been told they wouldn't get paid on time. And I mean, I don't think it's really happened to me seriously, never from a main employer where I haven't been paid on time. But is there a good way to say, Stephen, you're not going to get paid on time? I mean, is there a good way to do that? I don't know if you have some experience. The best way you've been told you won't get your money on time. And I think, generally speaking, the moment someone says you're not going to get paid on time, you kind of want to pack your bags and go, don't you? If you can. So often you can't. But I'd be very interested in your stories. The best way to say, I'm sorry, you're just not going to get your money. Could be a contract, could be a deal between businesses. You might be someone who lends out property and someone who rents it from you told you that. Best way to say you're not going to get your money on time. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567 and your voice notes, please, on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
Well, SPAR confirming today their headline earnings per share down by 8.9% overall for the year. The group making a loss mainly because of the way in which it had to sell its operations in Poland and Switzerland. But that's not really the story, I suppose. The real story probably is that their South African operations are looking stronger. The operating profit is up 2.3%. Cash generation from operations grew by 13%. Angelo Swartz is the CEO of SPAR. Angelo, good evening. Thank you for your time. Good to talk to you again. Obviously, you've now finally got rid of your operations in Poland and Switzerland. That's a big kind of thing off your neck. I imagine you've had a sigh of relief that that's finally done and dusted.
Good evening, Stephen. Thanks for having me. I haven't had someone describe it quite that way in the past, but I guess there's truth to that. I think those businesses, whilst there's massive potential in both those markets to grow them, I just don't think a South African operator was the right operator to get the best out of those businesses, as well as the debt we carried, which was the main concern in both those businesses, which we've thankfully now been able to bring to a close. As you mentioned, cash generated up nearly 14% from continuing operations, and debt down nearly 40% at year end, which is a big highlight for us.
Yeah, of course. What did you do to grow that cash generation? What changes did you make in your operations to get there? Some of it was operational. Your operational costs seem to be down. Your logistics seem to be doing a little better. Lower fuel costs, things like that.
Yeah, so obviously with us being a wholesaler delivering to independent retail, fuel cost is a big part of our cost base. And so careful management of fuel costs and then having a supportive fuel price has assisted there. So our fuel costs and our delivery costs down substantially relative to our turnover. Also, slight margin expansion in SA, so margins up 20 basis points, which obviously helped, despite being a lot more aggressive in the market from a advertising perspective. Lots of good stories in the SA business. SA operating profit up nearly 7%, 6.8% up, which we're happy with. I would have liked a bit more, but 7% is nothing to be sneezed at in the current environment.
No, sure. You said you use disciplined price and promotion management, and we've heard in the past that in this space, promotions do matter. How important are they to you?
Yeah, I think the South African consumer, like consumers everywhere in the world at the moment, are under a lot of pressure, despite inflation seemingly being at lows. The cost of living in SA has continued to increase, and consumers really at the end of a long interest rate cycle under considerable amount of pressure. And so consumers shop around quite a bit. And attractiveness of promotions has become a big draw card, and we've seen a disproportionate swing towards promotional sales in the last while. And so it's important to be, on target there.
You refer to the point that you're really a wholesaler. So when I talk about your retail loyalty, I'm really, I suppose, as I understand it, talking about your member stores. And you've been able to improve that, your member stores, by nearly 80% of their goods from you. There's tough competition out there. Is it hard to increase that, do you think?
It is, Stephen. So although we slightly down year on year, 60 basis points, for the last 6 months in H2, we did increase that by a 4%, which we're very proud of, especially under the current trading conditions. We don't have any minimum loyalty criteria or force our retailers to buy from us for any reason, to keep the system as competitive as possible. And I think the result really talks to a really strong performance by our teams.
Going forward, you say you're going to implement, you called it a risk-controlled rollout of SAP. This is the software program. You've had big problems with that in the past, Durban particularly. How have you changed the way you roll that out? Are you feeling a bit more confident about it? I think you said today that you're not quite halfway on that yet.
Yes. So as you and I have discussed in the past, we learned lots of lessons from the first go live in KZN. It's the only one we've done so far. I think the big difference in terms of how we are looking at the rollout going forward is that we won't be doing a bulk go live or sort of going all in as we did in KZN, where we changed all our systems, both our ERP and warehouse management system at the same time. And so we're going to be migrating our distribution centers in phase 1 onto the ERP and it's a purchasing management and general ledger portion of the business through April and May. And then we'll do a cautious rollout of the warehouse management system, where a lot of the issues were in KZN, and we'll do that one distribution center at a time, starting in the Eastern Cape towards July.
You're joining other retailers. You're getting more and more into the pet space. Your brand is Pet Story. Is there a lot of room for growth there, Angela? I mean, people spend a fortune on their pets. Everyone seems to be getting in on it. And certainly it would seem to be maybe one of the new places people are going to compete.
Yeah, I think in many ways, South African, particularly in the higher LSMs, South African consumers mimic what we see in Europe. And we are seeing smaller families, and in many cases, families not having kids and adopting pets. And so the pet market is something that we see growing going forward. Having said that, as I mentioned and you did earlier, we are primarily a wholesaler. And so what we're seeing is a market that is becoming dominated by corporate players. And really our model is one that supports independent retail. And we see that that the market primarily was run by independent retailers. And so we see value that we can add to the independent retailer to help them compete against the chains. And I mean, we do that successfully in liquor. I mean, our Tops brand is probably the most well-known liquor brand in the country. We do that in groceries with the second biggest grocer in the country. So I think we know how to do this. And pet is just an area in which I think we can bring our expertise to bear to assist independent retailers compete with the chains.
Angelo, thank you so much for the time. Angelo Swartz is the CEO at SPAR, 20 minutes after 6.
7:02.
7:02.
Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
The packaging producer Nampak reporting today trading profit up by 26% off revenue that was up by 8%. Trading margins improved as well. As a result, their headline earnings per share were up by 46%. Glenn Fullerton is the Chief Financial Officer at Nampak. Glenn, good evening. A long, hard road for you. You're generating more cash now. How have you been able to do that? You've made some significant changes.
Good evening, Stephen. It has been certainly a long and hard road. Years ago, Nampak entered into some foreign markets, most notably Nigeria and Angola, and there have been some headwinds that the group has faced for some time. As the group has become more focused, and we've been through an asset disposal process that has been very successful, we've also focused on reducing our operating costs. There's been a laser focus on those operating costs, a very strong focus on working capital management, and a very, very meaningful reduction in our interest costs in the year. So a culmination of all those aspects has allowed us to produce a significant amount more cash this year and increase our earnings.
You got 1.5 billion rand from some of those disposals. I was curious about COVID-19, which is not a phrase I thought I'd have to bring up with you, but you got 237 million rand from an insurance claim related to COVID-19. What happened with that claim?
Stephen, it's been a complex claim. It's spanned obviously several years. It's quite a complicated settlement in these environments. There are two types of claims, one under infectious diseases and one under a closure of premises, and there were different threshold limits that one could claim under. We stuck to our guns on our core reasons for the claim, and after a long and arduous engagement, we were able to settle on 237 million settlement for this claim.
Sounds like the lawyers were busy, Glenn. You referred to an issue at your Springs Line 2, which affected your production. It's a new line for you, newly commissioned. Have you been able to properly resolve that issue?
Upgrading these particular lines is more complex than meets the eye. These cans are made at a very, very high speed and a very low tolerance level of any errors. It took a little bit more work than we thought to bed that down. So unfortunately, we missed some of the Easter and Christmas volume that we could get out of that business, really from own goals from a production perspective. We are well positioned now to capitalize on strong volumes in those two periods of the year. So we look forward to a much improved revenue number coming from our beverage South Africa business.
You're actually relocating. You've got a spare line in Angola and you're moving it here. I presume that's quite a complex process. You're basically shipping an entire factory here.
It's an enormous task. That line was mothballed some years ago. There was a very significant increase in profitability in Angola in about 2016. The currency then, for whatever reason, the oil price came back quite sharply, and there was imported inflation into that market, and we didn't need that plant going forward. So it sat there idle for some years. It's a very, very complex task. We've packed up 130 containers, 40-foot containers. They'll be put on a ship from Luanda, shipped to the Durban port, and then driven up the N3 to our Springs plant, and then reassembled in that plant. And the very positive impact for Nampak will be the increased flexibility at a significantly lower cost than buying a new line. It's really a sunk cost within the group, and really a return on assets there will be positively impacted by using idle equipment that we had in the Angolan market.
Are you seeing a change in what people want from you? And I'm talking particularly about the size of cans and large cans. There are a lot more energy drinks around. People want the bigger one, the half a litre. Are you seeing that demand for that particular size growing?
There's an extraordinary demand for 500 milliliter cans. The energy drink sector is driving that market in a very meaningful way. And part of the flexibility that we're building into our Springs operations is to deal with that market trend. So we are bringing in the line from Angola to actually deal with the smaller size demand, the 300 and the 330 milliliter cans, and then we are going to upgrade one of our other lines to augment the capacity that we've got on the 500 milliliter cans. So it's a very real growing trend. There are some innovative products that are coming into those markets, and we're seeing demand exceeding our ability to supply at this point. So there is upside potential for volumes going forward as we position our plant to capitalize on that in the future.
You're clearly on the road to recovery. There are some changes coming through in the next little while. You're pretty confident you'll still be able to reduce your debt further, increase your earnings. You've already reduced your operating costs quite significantly, but you'll obviously keep that process going too.
There are a couple of big levers that one has got to control to keep reducing the debt. Margin focus is absolutely imperative, and we are, focused on that in a very, very meaningful way. Overhead management is critical, and we are being relentless in that. And, keeping our working capital under significant control and producing cash and lowering our interest costs is something that is key to our drive to reduce the debt. If you have a look at one of the slides that we put up in the presentation today, despite achieving a leverage ratio of 2 times, which is the net debt to EBITDA this year, it's 2 years ahead of where we thought we'd be. Had we been able to dispose our interest in the Zimbabwe business, we would have been able to get that ratio down to 1.1 times. So I think with that asset still held as an asset held for sale and strong initiatives to dispose of that asset and continue to generate strong cash, we generated 2 billion from operations this year in the business. We do think that the debt reduction will continue in a very meaningful way going forward.
Glenn Fullerton, I really appreciate the time. It's fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. The Chief Financial Officer at Nampak.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Arthur Karras is Portfolio Manager at Macro Solutions at the Old Mutual Investment Group. Arthur, good evening. Nampak, let's pick up on that. They do seem to be making strong progress.
Yes, they have. But they've taken some very, very strong actions. I think they managed to be quite brave when Full arrived there. They've had a rights issue. They've sold the Nigerian business. They've really taken some tough actions, and I think the benefits of those are coming through now. I mean, you can see that they're continuing to be tough. So notwithstanding the kind of okay turnover growth, they delivered a really good operating result because they kept the expenses very tightly under control. And then the benefits of all of the sales and the like coming through with their interest line nearly halving. So very strong result at both the operating line and at the finance line.
Spar also, obviously, technically, I suppose they made a loss for the year, but their local operations do seem to be making progress amid incredibly tough competition.
Yes, and they've got some disadvantages when you compare them. You mentioned ShopRite when you were speaking to Angela earlier. They own a whole franchise chain, so they are wholesalers, and they can't simply impose their ideas onto the franchisees. They kind of have to sell it to them. So that's left them like a little bit behind, playing catch up in something like food grocery delivery, where Checkers has made really taken advantage of that. So it's a little bit tougher for them to adapt quickly to the likes of a ShopRite or a Woolworths. And they're finding that, they're finding the same tough environment that everyone is facing in South Africa. They're finding that in Ireland as well.
ABS had a trading update, their guidance largely unchanged. Not a huge amount of information there?
A little bit better than expected. I think it really confirmed the direction that everyone expected them to be on. I think with a change of CEO there, what you really want is you want all the metrics to start heading in the right direction. And they were confident enough to give us some medium-term guidance where they expect their cost-to-income ratio to go from 53% down to 50% over the next 3 years. So saying that they're going to keep their revenue growth going faster than their costs. So if they can do that, that'll be a very good outcome for them.
Capitec today, 400 million rand on wallet, Doc. I don't know much about that company, but just the fact that they're investing again in payment systems, we've seen so many developments in fintech. It's a kind of indication of where we are at the moment.
Absolutely. This is an area that you must expect more action and you must expect impacts on the incumbents. So the Reserve Bank has indicated that it wants to bring down the cost of payments in this country, how much it costs you to pay your bills online and move money around online. So people are positioning for that. And Capitec definitely is trying to get in on that trend, and WalletDoc is part of that. So you need all the bits of the chain. You need those little machines that you tap on with your card. You need the ability to pay online. I got a bill the other day, and it had a very convenient SnapScan code in it. No way I was going to open up my bank app and go jump through all those hoops, add a new beneficiary. Just click on that 1 second, and it's done. So it tells you the environment is changing, and Capitec is trying to position itself for that.
In the US, if we can, so just as the weekend was starting, Netflix offered $72 billion for Warner Brothers Discovery. Suddenly, Paramount offering a much greater amount of money. I hate to say it, but it seems to my cynical mind that there's a politics here because sort of, the Trump administration and media, etc., and the owners of Paramount. How do you understand what's going on?
So there are definitely relationships there. So the news talk is that the Netflix CEO did go and talk to Trump about this. So he was aware of the fact that it was going to happen. But then the Paramount business is controlled by one of the son of Larry Ellison, who is a very close Trump ally. So it gets a bit tricky at that level. I think the bigger issue here for Netflix is probably the competitive angles. How much is their antitrust regulation going to allow them to own at the market? And something like Warner Brothers, with the titles that it owns and the movies that it has in its library, that's an asset that you simply cannot replicate. It doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't go and build it tomorrow. So it's going to be very, very valuable to somebody. It's going to become obvious over time whether someone overpays for it, and often in this kind of a heated bidding war, people do overpay. But clearly this is it's a tricky deal for whoever tries to do it.
Arthur Karras, thanks very much indeed. Portfolio Manager at Macro Solutions at the Old Mutual Investment Group, just after 6:30. Time for the latest Eyewitness News. Maki Malapo, good evening. COSATU and foreign donor funding.
Thanks, Stephen. Good evening. Yes, the Congress of the South African Trade Union says foreign donor funding for healthcare should be used for infrastructure and not to pay salaries of health workers. COSATU Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks says funding comes to an end eventually, while developing infrastructure like clinics will live on beyond the years of funding. Parks was making COSATU's submission during public hearings into the Special Appropriation Bill. The bill sets aside 754 million rand to address the funding shortfall in the Department of Health caused by the withdrawal of U.S. donor funds for HIV/AIDS programs.
If we receive aid in future, we should welcome it, but we would really recommend that in future when we receive such aid, whoever it's from, let it go towards funding infrastructure like a clinic, like a hospital or ambulances, so that when the funding does come to an end, because inevitably it will come to an end, we have no say or right to insist it continue because these are other countries' taxpayers' monies. We shouldn't use it for salaries, and that's what put us in a crisis this year. That
The Umkhonto weSizwe Party has now confirmed former President Jacob Zuma's daughter, Brimelda, will be sworn in as a parliamentarian on Wednesday. The confirmation comes a week after leaks from party headquarters. Former Deputy Police Minister Bongani Mkongi, who last week told Eyewitness News he was unaware of the deployment, will also be sworn in. They are among 4 new MPs who will take up seats on the benches of the official opposition, owing in part to vacancies arising from 2 high-profile resignations. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
10 days ago, the MK party announced the resignation of leader Jacob Zuma's daughter, Dudezile, following accusations that she's been involved in deceitfully luring South African men to Russia to fight in its war against Ukraine. A few days later, former PRASA boss Lucky Montana announced he too was quitting his short politics career after recently also caught in controversy with the tax authority and facing sequestration over millions of rand in unpaid taxes. With Zuma's 2 daughters trading places, the party says Brimelda Zuma brings with her experience in public administration. Meanwhile, another newcomer to parliament is Makhosazana Radebe, who has a history in local government as a former municipal councillor in the Lekwa municipality. Former MK military veteran Pumlani Kubukele completes the new cohort of 4. The party's parliamentary whip, Colleen Makubele, says the new MPs will bring a wealth of experience and dedication to the party and the National Assembly. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And the European Union has dismissed online attacks by tech tycoon Elon Musk after his social media platform X was fined 120 million euros by Brussels. His social media platform was slapped with a fine on Friday for breaking the bloc's digital rules. Musk hit out at the EU over the weekend, saying that it should be abolished and sovereignty returned to individual countries. The penalty was swiftly criticized by the U.S. administration of President Donald Trump. EU spokeswoman Paula Pino.
First of all, let me say that it's part of the freedom of speech to put out even completely crazy statements. I guess awarding companies of Mr. Musk, as explained by Thomas, a fine does not seem to warn the EU his sympathy.
Look at your weather. A partly cloudy Tuesday in store for Gauteng with thunder showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows, alternating between 15 and 16 degrees and peak at highs between 29 and 31. Partly cloudy skies for Cape Town along with light and variable winds at a low of 18 and a high of 25 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. The Congress of South African Trade Unions says foreign donor funding for healthcare should be used for infrastructure and not to pay the salaries of health workers.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in the Kempton Park Isando area, there's still roadwork slowing down traffic on the R24 westbound between OR Tambo International Airport and Barbara Road. Also traveling into Bedfordview, there's slow-moving traffic in Edenville. R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Kilulis interchange. While in the mother city, there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic into outbound between Mowbray Main and Bunga Avenue. Expect heavy delays on the M5 northbound approaching Barkley. And there's also slow-moving traffic. This is on the M3 southbound approaching Clipper Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072 702 1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
And the award for the spiciest stunt performed in a bowl goes to Tom Yum Cruise.
Thank you everyone. Wow, what an honor. I'd like to thank the chilies, the lemongrass, and of course, Simply Asia, for believing in my flavor.
It's the summer of stars at Simply Asia. Stand a chance to win a Toyota Starlet when you spend 200 Rand or more on our famous flavors. Order now. Simply Asia, connecting the Thaiway.
Breakfast with Bongani Bengwa.
Your morning fix of current events,
Developing stories,
and a whole lot more.
We share information, not because we have it,
but because it matters to you. We give a platform not just to newsmakers, but to you,
who are directly affected by what's happening in the news.
We'll expand your worldview, but bring you closer to who you really are.
Empowered, confident,
ready for those conversations around the water cooler.
Breakfast with Bongani Bengwa, 6 to 9 a.m.
Only on 702. Let's walk the talk.
WhatsApp Stephen
on 072
702
1702.
22 minutes now to 7 the time. I was making the point earlier. Is there a good way to say to someone you're not going to get all of your money on time? There probably isn't, but there are certainly worse ways rather than, non-good ways. One of the things that people do is they just stick their head in the sand. You see it all the time. Maybe they won't notice. They always notice. Take it from me. They always notice. I noticed again today another prominent South African talking about what they see as the green shoots, things that have improved. This time, the turn of Busisiwe Mavuso from Business Leadership South Africa, the CEO there. And I see so much sort of positivity around. I realize the economy's still not really growing, half a percentage point in the third quarter. 0.05% is what I mean. But we're just not seeing, the change on the ground. And yet, all of the things seem to be moving in the right direction, helped, of course, by a slightly stronger rand, a weaker dollar, stronger gold and platinum prices, all of those things. if all of those things are correct and all of that optimism is correct, well, 2026 could really be our year. But it might just still be a little sense of it's still 2020 feeling around you. I'm not sure how you're feeling about it at the moment. Good to hear from you on that on 072 702 1702.
EWN Sport.
Tolakela, good evening. You feeling confident heading into 2026? Things going to get better?
I fear they can't get any worse.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's why I'm confident.
So you're still kind of 2020 year 4?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. All right. Liverpool, how's it going?
Well, it's not going well, Stephen, because Mohamed Salah has been dropped from their squad for the UEFA Champions League tie away to Inter Milan tomorrow. That follows remarks about his relationship with manager Arne Slot, as well as his treatment by the Premier League club. The forward wasn't included in the squad announced by the club on Monday, despite training earlier in the day with the first team. Salah said on Saturday he felt like he'd been thrown under the bus and that he no longer had a relationship with Slot after he was left on the bench for the third consecutive game. That's in a 3-3 draw at Leeds.
We don't have any relationship. I don't know why. It seems to me, how I see it, it's someone doesn't want me in the club. It's not acceptable for me, to be fair. Like, I don't know why that's happening always to me. Like, I don't get it. I don't think I'm the problem. I have done so much for this club. I'm very disappointed. I'm very, very disappointed, to be fair. I have done so much for this club. Everybody can see that during the years and especially last season.
There's just one game in the Premier League tonight as winless Wolves host Manchester United. Coming into the clash, there are concerns about Kobe Manu's lack of game time under Ruben Amorim, and the coach has discussed if the player could leave during the January transfer window.
I see it and I just want to win. I try to put the players. I don't look who it is. I don't care about that. I just trying to put the best players on the pitch. You have Ugarte that played 2 games. One of them, Casa, was out. Bruno is always fit. He's the guy that is doing his position, so maybe it has to do with that.
Orlando Pirates added a second trophy this season after a 1-0 win over Marumo Gallants in the Carling knockout final as Rile Mofokeng scored the winner in extra time. Coach Arislan Madu has now backed the President Yama 2000 to deliver the Buccaneers a long-awaited league title.
We gave him some rest and he came back a very good fitness. And you can see that last 3-4 games that we played, he was part of the success of the team. He did some fantastic assists. And you can see the difference between Rile Mofokeng fit and Rile Mofokeng tired. Rile Mofokeng, even 70% of his possibilities, he can help the team. I cannot imagine when he's 100%.
And David Miller has recovered from a hamstring injury and is back for the Proteas 5-match T20 series against India that starts tomorrow. With a raft of new faces staking their claim in the squad ahead of next year's World Cup, he's discussed his evolving role in the side.
I think now I'm a lot more in control with my emotions, the pressure, very aware of match situations. At the end of the day, you can have all the experience, but you still got to do the job. So all the experience becomes nothing if you're not doing the job. So first prize is getting the job done. But in that process, I think I'm a lot clearer in my thinking, making better decisions under pressure and understanding the match situation.
Tolakela Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
17 minutes now to 7 the time. Well, confirmation from the Reserve Bank that what is called the Johannesburg Interbank Average Rate, a reference rate that commercial banks use to lend money to each other, is being phased out. It's called JIBAR. Your home loan might be tied to JIBAR, and it's now going to change. It's being replaced by the SA Rand Overnight Index Average, which is known as Zeronia, which, let's be clear, is a much better name. Deborah Carmichael's the Executive Director in Banking and Finance at ENS. Deborah, good evening. We're going to have to start at the very beginning here. What are reference rates and why are they so important?
Very good to be on your show. Thank you very much for having me. So what is the reference rate? I mean, the reference rate is effectively, in South Africa, the benchmark rate that underpins a number of cash market, money market, and potentially derivatives transactions. And so it's a fundamental rate within the South African financial markets, effectively.
Okay. Why would you have more than one rate in the first place? I presume they're made, they have different elements they're arrived at in different ways?
100%. And so different markets. So, for example, your cash markets or your retail markets would potentially have different rates. Your money market is going to have a different rate. Derivatives transactions primarily operate already in the overnight market. So really, the financial markets operate in all sorts of weird, wonderful ways behind the scenes that often we don't see. I mean, we'll often see, for example, the repo rate, and that's the one that everybody watches because, the SARB moves it up or down, and then our interest rates go up. So there's all sorts of rates underpinned by benchmark rates. JIBAR has, for a very long time, obviously underpinned a number of big corporate transactions, and the transactions that underpin corporate South Africa have typically referenced that rate for all of their cash markets transactions, and cash markets includes loans, and it also includes the bond markets. So when people raise money on the JSE or all manner of things, JIBAR has underpinned that rate for I think 3 decades.
Who sets JIBAR? How's it set?
Yeah. So, and actually, this is a really interesting question, which with a whole heap of tentacles of answers, but it's administered by the South African Reserve Bank, and it is created by banks in the interbank market selling what are called negotiable certificates of deposit to each other. So that's the rate at which banks in the overnight or the average rated market will borrow and lend effectively from each other. So you could buy a negotiable certificate deposit for example, a First Rand 3-month negotiable certificate of deposit with a tenor of 3 months. But what basically happens is a number of banks contribute to the rate. The South African Reserve Bank tops and tails those contributions and comes out with, as you said right at the beginning, the average rate over a number of those contributors. And that is so the way JIBAR is, open inverted commas, policed is through a JIBAR code of conduct that is published by the South African Reserve Bank, and then a number of banks subscribe to in their submissions to the rate, how they have to top and tail, when there are corrections, etc., etc.
Okay. Now, I understand that we're making this change not because of anything to do with JIBAR, but because of something that happened in LIBOR, which sounds like a small country far away, but in fact is the London equivalent. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a scandal involving traders who manipulated the London LIBOR, and as a result of that, people were concerned that JIBAR could be manipulated too easily. Now, they investigated, they found that it wasn't, but we're doing this to make sure that doesn't happen. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct, Stephen. I mean, I think that was so the way in which the London interbank offered rate was submitted was slightly different from the way Johannesburg interbank average rate is submitted. And I think that so exactly that is what led to the whole sort of group of 20 financial stability mandate being re-looked at, and stability in relation to benchmarks re-looked at. The scandal was a scandal, but it didn't involve and didn't result in any conviction in relation to LIBOR.
So then how is Zeronia different, and how can it not be vulnerable to manipulation in the way that JIBAR is, or we worry that it is? Deborah Carmichael, I don't know if you're still with us.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm still with you. Sorry, I don't know why my internet connection is so unstable when I'm on the radio. No, so ours was not vulnerable to manipulation in the same way that LIBOR was. Ours was just, our transaction data was very thin, however. And so the market based on JIBAR was not as representative of the actual market in which we existed, rather than it being subject to manipulation.
Okay.
So that's where we were quite different from LIBOR,
Sure.
yeah.
But why is Zeronia better? All right, we seem to have lost Deborah Carmichael there, the Executive Director in Banking and Finance at ENS. I'm sorry about that. As you can hear, I have a million questions about this because it's quite a technical area, and I've just been communicating with the production team of The Money Show. I'm hoping we'll get a thumbs up when I suggest we do this for Investment School on Thursday night, because I think there's a lot more to explore here. And also, I've always found when there is a change to this kind of situation, or to something like this, it opens the door to conversations about how things actually work. You take so many things for granted. You don't always know how it actually works. Who decides? Who sets? Why? When did this happen? What's the history of that? Those kinds of things. And my suggestion at the moment, and I think what we are going to try and do on Thursday, is get into this issue a little bit more. What's JIBAR? Why is it? Where's it going? What's Zeronia? Why is LIBOR related to it? All of those things. I think there's a lot more to look at there. You can get your questions in advance as well. And if you have any thoughts or comments, voice notes on 072 702 1702. It's 10 minutes to 7.
Business Outsurance are experts in business insurance for general practitioners, dentists, surgeons, and other medical specialists. Kuveni.
It's so nice to know the business risk is taken care of by Business Outsurance. The call center was just a dream to deal with. Very seamless, easy experience, and it just feels like the people we're talking to on the other line understand our needs.
Switch to Business Outsurance and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. Visit outsurance.co.za. Switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Here's the thing about running a business. It needs constant connection with reliable communication between you, your staff, and customers. That's why the right partnership matters. Get Cloud PABX from Telkom Business, a unified communication solution that makes connecting easy from just 161 rands per month.
This summer, your business deserves the best. Visit telkom.co.za/business for deals that keep your business online all the time. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669. The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by Absa CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the Absa Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025.
Well, 8 minutes now to 7 the time. An announcement from Eskom and producers of ferrochrome that they've finalized a memorandum of understanding. The whole idea here is to allow people who operate smelters to restart production. You'll have heard many times, nearly all of our smelter operators have shut their furnaces. The price of electricity is too high for them to compete, is what they say. Eskom, of course, doesn't want to sell electricity for less than it is selling it at the moment. Yapi Fullard is the CEO at Glencore Alloys, one of the big operators in this space. Yapi, good evening. I really appreciate the time. Thank you. We can all see the real issue is electricity prices. What kind of agreement have you reached with Eskom? And I presume government's involved in here, somewhere.
Yeah. Hi, Stephen. Good speaking to you again. I think the last time when I spoke to you, we were going into the Section 189, if you can recall. So, I mean, obviously, we as Glencore Merafe only had like a couple of weeks left before I had to retrench thousands of people. So, obviously, government and everybody working really hard to find a solution. And I can tell you that the MOU that we did sign, obviously, is not a done deal yet. There's still a lot of work to be done. But definitely for us as Glencore Merafe, it's definitely a positive move. And what it will mean is that we will now work with Eskom, we will work with government and trying to find solutions that we know there are definitely possible solutions out there.
So I'm presuming that this all depends on whether you can get cheaper electricity. I mean, if you can't, none of it works. Is that right?
That is 100% correct, yes.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Go on.
No. I mean, that's the whole basis of this. I mean, you know that in specifically ferrochrome, between ourselves and also Mancore, I mean, if you have a look at our operations, we've got 0 out of 22 furnaces now running, 0. So we are just exporting all the ore. So for us to be able to make it work, we need cheap electricity. And unfortunately, electricity constitutes about between 30 and 40% of our operating cost would be electricity. So for that reason, if it's inflated the way that it is now, I mean, you would know or can remember that, you know, we talked about 900% increase since 2008. So it's impossible to smelt economically in South Africa. And for that reason, we need a solution.
You're expecting, I think the Eskom statement referred to an interim tariff. What is the interim tariff? I don't mean the amount. That hasn't been determined yet, I don't think. But why is it interim? Is it because you're expecting a sort of deeper conversation in the future?
Yeah, I mean, what I made it quite known there to Eskom is that the interim solution, unfortunately for me, is Glencore is not going to help. We need to find the final solution, and there's definitely mechanisms out there that we can get to a price that would be doable for all of us. We've been putting a couple of ideas on the table with Eskom. I must honestly, say, Stephen, that this time around, between the CEO of Eskom, the minister, everybody really wants to help. I mean, the presidency, they are all involved in this, and we know that there could be solutions, just as long as the primary producers doesn't suffer. I think that's very important. I mean, you as the men in the street are not supposed to be worse off by a solution, because then it's actually only a subsidy.
No, sure, but I mean, isn't it going to have to be a subsidy? There isn't any other way. I mean, you're going to have to pay less for your electricity than I do, and in return, you're probably going to be able to re-employ the people you had to let go, and you'll create a downstream industry. I mean, isn't that how this is going to have to work?
Yeah, look, I mean, what we want to really do is you want to find a mechanism that you move away from a tariff or a subsidy, because I can tell you, we are talking about a lot of money here, and we don't want to do it. We don't want to let somebody else suffer because of they are just trying to save beneficiation. There are solutions out there that can work. I mean, the IPP PPA type of concept where you take thermal coal and you convert that into electrons. But I mean, you can do it through another mechanism. So there's a lot of moving cogs in this whole discussion, but definitely I am actually quite excited about it. Yes.
No, I'm sure. I mean, so some of those solutions would be, I presume, having independent power producers generating electricity perhaps in different ways. But even then, that's quite difficult. I mean, in the end, a smelter is the very definition of what you would call a customer of baseload. You need reliable electricity, and you need an awful lot of it. So you're exactly the reason why someone would build. I mean, the reasons why you wouldn't build a coal-fired power station, but it would be the strongest argument for nuclear that there is.
Yes, and I think within your own submission now is the fact that we are baseload. Actually, South Africa needs baseload. They need us, and because you are stabilizing the grid tonight, when everybody sleeps, we actually consume all those electrons. So it's actually for Eskom a very important portion is that because of the let's say the cost curve and the way that it works. Eskom is actually heavily dependent on, let's call it, the energy-intensive users. So we need to find neat solutions. And like I said, I really believe that this time around we will be able to find them, yes.
You seem to be getting on quite well with Eskom. How big is the role that government is playing in all of this? I mean, I presume they have huge interests in this too.
No, 100%. I can tell you the government, and I'm not going to call the people by name, but I can tell you that the presidency have got special advisors, and everybody is really trying to help, and we've got some really clever people out there, and I can tell you that the government also understands. Remember, if we close down shop, 2,500 direct employees, 10,000 indirect, GDP times 5, it's going to be a massive impact, let's say, on the economy. So very important that this is a solution that could work for the whole of South Africa.
Yapi Falot, thanks so much. Really appreciate the time. Very interesting to watch that process. The CEO at Glencore Alloys. We will be speaking to, in a moment, Hilton Kilners, the CEO at Discovery Bank, his reading list for the Christmas period. He's going to share that with us. We'll speak to Dr. Ralph Mateja as well in How I Make My Money with The Money Show at 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Maki Malapo. NPA boss Shamila Batoy has admitted she did not read the docket into former KwaZulu-Natal Hawks head Johan Boysen and his Kato Manor unit before withdrawing racketeering charges against them. Batoy was cross-examined earlier today at the inquiry probing Joburg's prosecution's head Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office. One of the allegations is that Chauke improperly decided to prosecute Boysen with no evidence justifying the decision. Batoy claims Chauke's prosecutorial decisions were politically motivated. Has more.
In addition to admitting that she'd not familiarized herself with the terms of reference of the inquiry, NPA head advocate Shamila Batoy told the court that she'd not read the docket into former Hawks head Johan Boysen's racketeering case when she decided to withdraw the charges. Chauke's legal representative, advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, further probed her on this question.
But you have come to say to the panel there was no case against Major General Boysen without ever having read the docket. Can I suggest that that is an astonishing proposition coming from the head of our prosecution service? And I'm going to tell the panel that at the end, that your evidence must be rejected as incredible, because it is irresponsible to make such a claim without having read the docket.
Batoy insists there is case law that says national directors are not expected to read every single bit of evidence and every docket in cases. She says she relied on legal opinion and a report from the panel that she'd appointed. Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
Labour Federation COSATU wants South Africa to forge more partnerships with major trading partner, the United States, especially on healthcare. COSATU made the call amid rising tensions between South Africa and the US over false claims that Afrikaners are being persecuted in the country. COSATU was making submissions at the public hearings on the 2025 medium-term budget police statement, as well as the special appropriation bill. Babala Ndenza has more.
COSATU Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks told the Standing Committee on Appropriations that while the organization welcomes the special appropriation bill, they're disappointed it took so long. He says the bill, which will plug the funding gap following the cancellation of US funding for health, still falls short of the funding shortfall. Parks says now is a good time for the country to continue engaging the US.
We would encourage the government to continue to engage with the US on future possible partnerships, perhaps when waters cool down a little bit. But we also think, Chair, fundamentally as a sovereign nation, we should actually be absorbing such programs within the Department of Health.
Parks says US funding of South African public healthcare programs since 2003 had a massive impact, with 140 billion rand invested and millions of lives saved. Babalo Ndanza, Eyewitness News.
DA leader John Steenhuisen has hit out at those whom he says are trying to sow divisions within the party, saying the media is being told a pack of lies about him and the DA. Steenhuisen has courted unwanted attention since firing the party's treasurer, Dion George, as Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment last month. Addressing the Northern Cape Provincial Congress over the weekend, Steenhuisen said if the party is to wrest control over the country's poorest province, it needs to stop the infighting. Isaac Fritz was elected uncontested as the party's new provincial leader, taking over from Harold Maglua. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
DA leader John Steenhuisen has told party supporters in Uppington that they should not waste their time backing small parties in the upcoming local government elections, saying it makes it easier for the ANC to stay in control and harder for his party to win.
We cannot be playing games internally when the people out there are pinning their hopes on us to bring the change.
Following Dion George's removal, however, Steenhuisen's personal finances have been thrown into the spotlight, as well as claims that he's abused party funds. George, meanwhile, is facing allegations of unbecoming conduct during his time as minister. Steenhuisen says if the party is to improve its electoral prospects, the slander must stop.
Lies have short legs. And I'm telling you that when the truth comes out, those same people who have been spreading these lies and misinformation are going to have a day of reckoning.
Steenhuisen says the DA intends to become the largest party in the country in the next local government elections. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News.
And the National Consumer Commission has issued another vehicle recall, this time affecting the Jeep Wrangler vehicles and various Kia models. This after Stellantis South Africa informed the Commission that it is recalling 323 Jeep Wrangler vehicles. According to the supplier, the dust inside the clock spring could compromise airbag circuit. At the same time, Kia South Africa says it's recalling a total of 18,600 vehicles from 5 different models of the group. The affected models require an ABS fuse replacement. NCC spokesperson Petron Daba.
We request the drivers of the following vehicles: Kia Sportage SL and KM, Kia Sorento XM, Kia Optima TF, Cerato TD, as well as Kia Soul AM, to immediately contact their Kia approved dealerships to ensure that their vehicles are checked. This is after Kia South Africa informed the Commission that they are recalling a total of 18,600 vehicles.
Gold's trading at $4,189.14 an ounce. The rand's at 17.04 to the dollar, at 22.69 to the pound, at 19.80 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $62.85 a barrel.
Traffic in the mother city, slow-moving traffic into outbound between Mulberry Main and Bunga Avenue. Also slow-moving traffic on the M5 northbound approaching Barkley Road. And there's also bumper traffic M3 southbound. This is heading towards Clipper Road.
A look at your weather. A partly cloudy Tuesday in store for Gauteng with thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 15 degrees and peak at highs of 29. Pretoria is at 16 and 31. Vereeniging's at 15 and 30. A partly cloudy day for the mother city along with light and variable winds tomorrow at a low of 18 and a high of 25 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. NPA boss Shamila Batoy has admitted she did not read the docket into former KwaZulu-Natal Hawks head Johan Boysen and his Kato Myrna unit before withdrawing racketeering charges against them.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the ABSA Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025. 7 minutes after 7 the time. Don't forget, in My Money this week, we'll be speaking to Dr. Ralph Materga from 7:30 this evening. Never actually sat down with a political analyst and gone, where does your money come from? What do you do to get it? He's also, by the way, I don't know if you know this about him, he's a farmer, and I'm very aware that the ANC's National General Council is underway, which is one of the reasons I thought this might actually be a good moment. We'll put some questions to him about that as well. The ANC leader, President Cyril Ramaphosa, was talking earlier today. The Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, has been talking. Big promises of changes to the seaters and things like that. That was my reaction too. But we'll talk a little bit about that with Dr. Ralph Materga. And in a moment, something we try and do every year if we can, looking at the books that people read. The Discovery Bank CEO Hilton Kellner is here to discuss his holiday reading list. Good to hear from you as well. 011 883 0702 021 446 0567. What are you reading at the moment and why? 072 702 1702.
The Money Show.
Business books.
Well, as you know, this is the one time of year when quite a few people have time to sit back, relax. You can possibly already hear the wind rustling in the trees or the waves actually just in the distance and haul out a book. Or if you read it on an e-reader, as I like to do, getting that ready and making sure it's charged and all the rest and just looking at what you're actually going to read over this Christmas. Or someone who maybe a little ahead of you in this, I suppose, is Hilton Kellner. He's the CEO at Discovery Bank, and he puts together a list for people he works with, and he joins us now. Hilton, good evening. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks so much for having me again, Stephen.
I don't know how you decide to go through all the year's books and come out with just 10. I mean, I would probably be sitting with lists all over the place for months. You start with Money, appropriately, A Story of Humanity by David McWilliams. What's so special about this?
So, I mean, I think for any banker, seeing a title like Money is immediately interesting. But this one actually is slightly different. It's the history. It's the history of money, and it's history told through money and kind of the concept of money and how people evolved. And it uses money as the kind of the thread through history itself, all the way through to cryptocurrency today, and how it reflects almost the kind of the era that we're in. So it's a very smart book. It kind of talks to the system of money itself and how you believe in money, and that's what creates money. If you think about it, it's kind of the trust factor more so than anything else. And so it really is. It's more of a history book than finance book, which is quite interesting for a banker. So I thought very, very interesting.
I mean, what I find on the money show is that conversations that we have are about money, but they're actually about life. We spoke to the chief financial officer at Nampak. That's all about beverages and what you're drinking, basically. We spoke to the CEO at the Spa Group and what they're doing at the moment. That's all about life. In a way, it seems like this book it's about money, but actually it's about people.
Correct. It's really tracing history, and in a very kind of witty way, and it goes right from tablets through to fiat currency, through to crypto, all the way, and everything in between, and credit and kind of digital currency, and it talks to every step of the history of humanity in many respects. So really, really interesting, and it kind of makes the point that studying money is about studying humans, and people, and that's what it is.
Number 2 on your list, I've got to tell you, Hilton, I was a little surprised, okay? It's Unlocked by Eben Etzebeth. Was this before the Wales game?
It actually was. And I mean, I'm a huge Springbok fan, I suppose, like every single other South African. And we had Eben at one of our conferences. Just a fascinating, brilliant sporting kind of giant. And when I saw the biography, I thought that's something to read on a beach somewhere.
Yeah.
And really looking forward. I think there's probably one chapter that still needs to be added to the book. But and probably many more to come, hopefully. But I think just given what an absolute legend Eben is, I think I'm really looking forward to the locker room stories and everything that the book kind of talks to. So really interested in seeing where he's come from and what's made him the kind of the player that he is today.
I mean, I'm always interested in sporting biographies because sometimes they reveal that actually the cyclist or the runner is just very boring. And sometimes they actually reveal a lot more about what was going in, where someone really comes from. Some of the stories about people as a young person, you suddenly see where the drive really comes from.
Yeah, and I think there are also stories about leadership often and teamwork and kind of the values and the culture that makes great sporting teams what they are. And the Springboks are for me kind of the best example of that. So I think it's very much more than a story about sport. It's the characters that kind of that the people encounter along the way, and how teammates build legacies. And I think the Springboks are just the best example of that. And I think Eben is one of the kind of the greats. So it, as you say, it was selected a few weeks ago, but I think the story is still brilliant, and I think it kind of, you'll probably understand a lot more about him once you read it.
Yeah, no, I mean, interesting. And the thing about rugby players is you hear them speak sometimes, but you don't really get under their skin because what they do isn't about that. It's about playing the game. Something a little different, The Art of Uncertainty. David Spiegelhalter is the author. Aren't you an actuary? I mean, isn't uncertainty something you don't really like?
Yeah, I'm an actuary by training. That's why the book immediately appealed to me. I think the sort of the theory that you need to understand, manage, and really kind of interpret risk, and how you do that is something that has immediate appeal. And how you incorporate that into everyday practice. And that's really what the book is very much about. It's how we use numbers and not kind of necessarily just adjectives to quantify uncertainty. And that's that I think is very much what actuaries do. So a book that almost feels like it was written for the profession, in many senses. But I get to read it on the beach, and it looks pretty normal. So I think hopefully that'll be great.
It's so interesting, just as I listen to you talk about it. We seem to be living in an era of much uncertainty, and yet an era with more data than ever before. And you'd think the more data we have, the more certain we are. But actually, we're in quite an uncertain era, and isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So we're living in really, really uncertain times. What the book talks to is the theory of kind of Bayesian statistics, where you update what you know based on the information that becomes available. And that I think, in the world in which certainly we operate in Discovery is exactly aligned to our kind of culture and values, that we will debate things time and time again, and as new data emerges, we'll kind of update the decisions and our way of thinking. And so, I think this is very much in line with that.
And then from something more different, The Optimist by Keach Hagee. Optimism in an uncertain world?
So this is I think hopefully exactly what our culture is about at Discovery, kind of the optimistic outlook on life, and kind of understanding and identifying opportunities. And that requires real optimism in many respects. The book here is very much about the story of OpenAI and Sam Altman, and the kind of the vision that he had for AI. So I think it's timely, but I think the title itself was what appealed to me. That it could have been almost about anything, but seeing The Optimist and it just immediately resonated, and the fact that it talks to something which is I guess so topical at this point in time is immediately brilliant.
Are you optimistic about AI? I mean, some people are very pessimistic about it. They see literally the end of the world as we know it.
I think that I am optimistic. I see the opportunities in what AI is doing for us every single day, and how we're applying it, and what it's doing for kind of our business and our clients. And I think there obviously are risks, and there's kind of moral and ethical dilemmas that come into all of the different aspects of AI, but the opportunity that it represents is just dramatic. And so from that perspective, I'm incredibly optimistic.
Strong Ground, Brene Brown. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. But this is technically about leadership.
Yeah, entirely. And I try and build in a few kind of leadership and sort of almost I suppose personal books, in a sense that are there to really stimulate thought amongst our leadership team, or my colleagues that I do give these books to. But this one is really I think interesting in the sense that it talks to the ability to learn and unlearn continuously, and the ability to really kind of stick to your principles and be resilient. And I think in the current world where principles and integrity are so important, finding that strong ground, I think is absolutely crucial. And it's something that I thought is really, really relevant.
There's a new book by Bill Gates, of all people, Source Code: My Beginnings. And I've always thought, there's some people who really seem to hate Bill Gates. I've always had the feeling that he was more interested in what he was doing than just making money. Not everyone is like that, and especially in that world, but he was just interested in trying to make it all work.
Yeah, so I mean, this book is interesting in the sense that it's the first of a trilogy.
Yeah.
That he's writing on his life story.
He's getting his version of history in, eh?
Yeah, so he's kind of writing it the way he wants it to be remembered, I guess. His full legacy, but those early days must have been just so interesting. They were literally building the internet, in a sense, and he was one of the he was at that kind of fulcrum of the beginning of technology as we know it. So I think the stories are well known. Of the start of Microsoft, but I think this goes right back even before that, and so I think in order to really understand, I think, technology today, it's it will be really interesting to see the real kind of beginnings of Microsoft and Bill Gates' early days, and that's what this book is all about. Microsoft today so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Virtually everything we do is in some way connected to Microsoft itself. And I think, you can't, whatever you think about Bill Gates, he's defined a lot of what we do today.
He's made Control-Alt-Delete part of popular culture.
I
We all
mean,
know what it means.
Copy star.
Yeah.
And, those MS-DOS codes are still with us today. And I think the fact that he's branched out way beyond that makes it even more interesting. And the organization itself has outlived certainly what he started, and is thriving today. And so I think, the kind of the foundations that we built were quite remarkable. And so I think the kind of the lens on the beginnings is going to be really, really interesting.
Hilton, I'm a little nervous about your next choice. It's by an author called Andrew Ross Sorkin, and it's just a series of numbers. It's 1929 is the name of the book. There's been a lot of sort of hints, and if you sort of go onto Reuters markets and search bubble, you're going to find that word quite a lot at the moment, The Economist too. Why particularly 1929 and the Wall Street crash?
So I think, we, as you say, the kind of the Magnificent Seven and tulips and bubbles and the kind of the thematic around the economic environment and financial environment in which we're living is kind of the analog to 1929 is just uncanny in many respects. And so, when I saw the book, the parallels to the kind of the modern era that we're living in are just incredible. And if you read Too Big to Fail, then I suppose the style is really, really appealing and resonates. And so it's about the storytelling and the characters and the way that he really draws them out, which is why it actually appealed to me more so than kind of trying to relive and relearn the lessons of 1929. Hopefully that will be interesting in itself. But I think the natural style of Andrew Sorkin is really, really interesting, and so I'm looking forward to reading it.
Winner's Curse by Richard Thaler. This is the 2025 version. It says here he won a Nobel Prize for it, so I presume that it's pretty good.
So the original one is one of my absolute favorites, and I've read it a few times. This has been updated with a lot more kind of case studies and modern parallels. He won the Nobel Prize for it, as you say, for a lot of the theories, in particular things like loss aversion, which he studied and which we apply every day in our organization, the way that we design structures, and the kind of like the concept of a nudge. And how we encourage people to do things that are not necessarily completely rational but are good for them certainly in the long term is something that is fundamental to what we do at Discovery, whether it's in health or driving or money. This is kind of a lot of what our business has been built on, and so the theory of being a little bit nudgy and that concept is in many respects kind of almost core to what we are. And so Winner's Curse is now updated. It's almost like an encyclopedia for behavioral economists, and so I think it's going to be really, really interesting.
Try not to look at my sports watch as you talk. The book Dirtbag Billionaire. This is actually about fast fashion. I don't know about you, but I'm no expert. I presume, this is one of the things that's been the big story of the last few years, is how fashion has changed.
So this is actually almost the antithesis of fast fashion in many respects. It's about the story of Patagonia, which is a fashion brand, as you say, but it comes with a lifetime guarantee. So if anything goes wrong with it, they replace it. And if you think about fashion today, it's almost the antithesis. It is an intense focus on the environment and very much on quality and building quality. So I love the brand. I love the concept that it represents. And the protagonist, the founder of Patagonia, which is the biography of Dirtbag Billionaire, is kind of almost the fashion equivalent of shared value. Kind of building an organization that is good for all the stakeholders, with a lifetime guarantee, which in today's modern era is almost unheard of. So I think it's an absolutely brilliant story, a brilliant brand, and so I think the kind of the concept really does resonate.
The Springboks I did see coming. I realized that you're a banker by profession and actuary by training. I did not see a love story in songs, John and Paul. This is about the Beatles, John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
So I love the Beatles. I've loved music, and I listen to records. I still listen to LPs, and kind of love the analog of a record player. And this book is quite unique in a sense in that all of the chapters are named after the song titles in chronological order, and it tracks the sort of the story of the Beatles, and in particular Lennon and McCartney, who wrote all of the songs, and tracks their kind of their evolution through the actual titles and chapter by chapter. So it's a brilliant kind of concept, and the fact that they've managed to actually get it exactly right is phenomenal. It's like really creative, and I think you'll kind of think of the songs and play them and in your mind as you read the book.
And Types of Wealth, 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloem.
So we actually hosted a conference where Sahil Bloem presented, and I think the book has sold over 600,000 copies over the course of this year already. And the 5 Types of Wealth really talks to kind of the multidimensional nature of our lives, and how, it's not just about money, it's very much about health, it's about time. Those are probably the 2 things that when you think about what are most important really come to the fore. And he gives a really interesting tool set for how you can prioritize what really is important, and how you get that, the concept of not necessarily balance per se, but focus on the things that are going to be really, really important.
Hilton, thanks so much for coming in and sharing this with us. I really appreciate it. Lots of ideas to think about in those book titles. Hilton Kellner is the CEO at Discovery Bank on The Money Show.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Durbanville Hills pairs perfectly with sunsets, your favorite playlist, and your favorite people. Durbanville Hills pairs really well with your December Friendsmas party. It pairs perfectly with every story. And right now, when you buy any 2 bottles of Durbanville Hills from participating retailers, you could win a 5,000 Rand voucher. Durbanville Hills pairs perfectly with every story. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Breakfast with Bongani Bengwa.
Your morning fix of current events,
Developing stories,
and a whole lot more.
We share information, not because we have it,
but because it matters to you. We give a platform not just to newsmakers, but to you,
who are directly affected by what's happening in the news.
We'll expand your worldview, but bring you closer to who you really are.
Empowered, confident,
ready for those conversations around the water cooler.
Breakfast with Bongani Bengwa, 6 to 9 a.m.
Only on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Think radio is out of reach? Think again. With Prime Media Credit, you can get your brand on 947, 702, KFM 94.5 and Cape Talk now and pay later. Flexible finance, big impact. Email advertise@primemedia.co.za. Prime Media Credit, powered by Bridgement.
Coming up
The Aubrey Masango Show
on 702
and Cape Talk.
Aubrey, good evening. It's Monday. How are you starting our week?
I'm well. Are you well this week?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Yeah,
Great stuff. We start off with a very, very important conversation. A lot of people are calling it South Africa's silent crisis. It's clubfoot. Yeah, and I'm going to be speaking to Karen Mara Moss, founder and CEO of 5 Steps, which is an organization that's trying to bring awareness around clubfoot. Oh, sorry, is my face not in the mic? And then Dr. Donald Gumede is going to be telling us about the health aspects of clubfoot. Second to that hour is Komoto Modise, who's Eyewitness News reporter, telling us about what's going on at the Ngabinde Commission. And then the last hour of the show, we're going to be talking about what's happening at the ANC's NGC. You'll remember that just last week, Banyazili Sufi said that this is a sinking ship. And I think that the NGC has a lot to talk about as far as where the ANC is heading to. And that is the show tonight.
Thank you very much indeed. Aubrey Masango from 8 o'clock tonight. Just gone 7:30, time for the latest Eyewitness News. Marky, good evening. The latest from Salisbury.
Good evening, Stephen. Residents in Salisbury and Pretoria West are still reeling from a mass shooting that claimed the lives of 12 people, including 3 minors. On Saturday, 3 gunmen stormed a tavern at the Salisbury hostel and opened fire. A total of 25 people were shot, with minors aged 3, 12 and 16 among those killed. National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola visited the hostel earlier today. MK Party Gauteng spokesperson Abel Dau says the incident highlights the alarming state of crime in the country.
It can't be that 12 people can be mowed down, 24 in total, and you have a situation where, all of them that were attempted to be murdered in this manner, and we did not pick it up as a country. There was no really, a vibration in the earth that those criminals should know that you will never attack our people in this manner.
2 suspects have been arrested in connection with a shooting in which 2 children and a man were wounded in Klootersville in Stellenbosch. The motive for last night's attack is not yet known. The police's Wesley Twigg.
Following a shooting incident on Sunday evening in which 2 children aged 4 and 7 and an adult male were shot and wounded, the station commander of Klootersville SAPS instructed police members to work around the clock to bring the perpetrators to book.
Twigg says the officers used informer networks to source information and obtained witness statements in their hunt for the suspects.
The members followed up all information they gathered on the whereabouts of the suspects, and their determination to bring the suspects to book were rewarded when they arrested them within 2 hours after the shooting incident occurred. The 2 suspects, aged 27 and 31, face charges of attempted murder.
Twigg says the alleged gunmen will appear in the Stellenbosch Magistrates Court once charged. And in the US, Paramount Skydance has made another offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery as it seeks to trump a rival plan from Netflix to buy the company's studio and streaming networks. Paramount, which is backed by the billionaire Ellison family, said it was making a direct offer to shareholders of $30 per share to scoop up the whole of Warner Bros., including its traditional television networks. It said its proposal was a superior alternative to Netflix's, delivering more cash up front to shareholders and greater prospect of approval by regulators. The bid from Paramount is the latest twist in a saga that started a few months ago when Paramount started submitting offers to buy Warner Bros., eventually prompting the owner of HBO and classics from Looney Tunes to Harry Potter to formally open a bidding process. Warner Bros. Declared Netflix the winner of that auction on Friday, announcing a deal that valued its studio and streaming networks, including HBO, at about $83 billion, including its debt. It said the sale would proceed after a planned spin-off of other parts of Warner Brothers' business, including CNN, into an independent company. Paramount's offer values the entire company at $108.4 billion, which it said was a better deal. A look at your weather. A partly cloudy Tuesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow with thunder showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows alternating between 15 and 16 degrees and peak at highs between 29 and 31 degrees. Partly cloudy skies for Cape Town along with light and variable winds at a low of 18 and a high of 25 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News. Residents of Salzville in Pretoria West are still reeling from a mass shooting that claimed the lives of 12 people, including 3 minors.
What's the secret to turning on success? Easy. The right partnership. With Telkom Business, get solutions that elevate your business. A reliable internet connection that keeps your team on track. Get fiber, an integrated unified communications tool. Get cloud PABX, connectivity that keeps up with the festive rush. Get unlimited LTE.
This summer, your business deserves the best. Visit telkom.co.za/business for deals that grow your business. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
As calendars fill with year-end events, give your team a ride they can trust. With Lula Chauffeur, your people get safe, reliable transport that's easy to manage. They'll match the right vehicle for the occasion and make sure it's on time so you can enjoy the celebration stress-free. Dedicated vehicles for your people. Vetted drivers. Rides planned around your schedule. That's Lula Chauffeur. Act now. Book your year-end movements at lulaloop.co.za. That's L-U-L-A loop.co.za. Lula. Move the people. Move the world.
At Auto & General, we understand your business is built on more than just vehicles. It's your stock, tools and equipment, and the premises where you work. Auto & General Business Insurance is designed for businesses like yours, protecting your assets against fire, theft, storms, and other unexpected events. To protect your livelihood, visit autogen.co.za and get an obligation-free business insurance quote. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Money Show. How I make my money.
24 minutes now to 8 the time. Well, from time to time, you'll hear people on the radio, watch them on TV, and not be entirely sure how they got there. Often it's entertainers, it'll be people who present sport, for example. But one of the groups of people that we see very often on our screens, that we hear very often on our radios, are a group of people who are often referred to as political analysts. Most of them are academics. Some of them have come from journalism and moved into sort of becoming a political analyst. And I thought it would be interesting to just trace the story of one of these people to better understand their career. And someone I've spoken to for many years, in fact, I think back from 2012, is Dr. Ralph Matega. He is the analyst. He does many other things. He is also a farmer, and he joins us now. Ralph, good evening. It's wonderful to talk to you, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to 702 family. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. Such a pleasure to connect with you again.
We hear you discussing politics. That's kind of how we see and hear you most of the time. It's often related to economics. I know many people in this country have been born into politics. Was it something you were born into? Was it something you were thinking about as a young child, or did the interest come later?
I was quite curious, even the interest came later. I was trained in politics at university, trained in law, trained in economic history. But I was so curious. I remember when I did my undergrad, I spent a lot of time also reading newspapers. And I had professors who encouraged me to read quite a lot of current affairs. So I've always gravitated towards politics, international relations, but most importantly on how it affects or relate to daily living experience for most people. So I came through a lot through academia. And then my earlier publications, before I even started writing for newspapers, I was publishing in academic journals, contributing chapters. And so you mentioned the group that moved from academia into political analysis work. For me, I've merged the two together because I still exist a lot within academia where year in, year out, I publish for academic journals, books, publication, such as chapters and so forth. And I engage with academics. I enjoy reading quite a lot. So I found myself one day being referred to as political analyst. I said, well, that's not inaccurate. It's part of what I do.
I mean, I know some people really don't like the phrase political analyst, but, you know, an economist is an economics analyst, but we can't call you a politician. Are you comfortable with the term? I mean, I've thought for many years, is there a better term? But actually, what you are doing when you come on the radio is you're analysing politics. I don't know of a better term.
I mean, Stephen, I'm quite comfortable with the term, and I've also looked at how this has emerged, this has evolved as a profession over a period of time. I mean, you have seen people mostly who will be rooted in academia, will be rooted in journalism, in economics, but they come and break down current affairs to talk about implications on policy making and thereof. So I'm quite comfortable with it. Actually, I've been mistaken to being a politician. That I always correct to say, no, I'm not a practitioner. Politicians are people who, they go to office, they get elected, and I don't do that. What I do is to look at the issues and to look at the broader environment within which actors that we refer to as politicians, our political leaders, they make decisions, and what criteria do they use thereof. So it's not a cut and dry where you can say there is a pure separation. But I always believe, Stephen, that it's always better to get a sense of the concept. That's what we learn in academia, and then we try to apply them on current affairs and public policy discourse.
Where were you growing up? And I feel I've known you for so long, and I don't think I've ever asked you that question. What kind of community were you growing up in?
Interestingly, I grew up within a farming community in an area oddly named My Darling Village. And I say oddly named because every time I refer to this, you are with your wife, you say, I'm going to my darling. The friends might say, hey, where are you going? Because that's supposed to be your darling right here. But I grew up in this area. It's in Senobarwana, which used to be called Bochum area. And interestingly, Stephen, I did my matric here in the rural high school here. And I've been part of the community. Every time I would venture in other countries, travel, study, I always have the community in mind. I always try to relate my story, my research back to the community where I grew up. I mean, I've been to many countries, but I believe this is one of the best communities among which to live, actually.
To go from there, obviously you would have had to do quite well in matric to get into university. There's always a big fight for places. How difficult was that?
I mean, the teachers were very supportive. I was quite ambitious, even young. I left this place when I finished my matric. I was 17. And then, fortunately enough, I got admitted to Wits University, and I never looked back. That's when I did my undergrad, I did my honors, I did my master's. Privileged enough to even go study overseas and do that. So often when I see younger people here in my community, some of them, they don't believe I studied here. And their parents will remind them that, no, you used to study here. You used to go to home and eat at home during lunch break at school and so forth. So it's a story where, you come around and you talk to the younger ones, saying to them that it doesn't matter where, you can always make it and always try to show. And most interestingly, when I go out to interact with people elsewhere, I bring the case study of where I grew up, this village. It's always fascinating. It's a very strong agricultural community. I remember, Stephen, before I went to university, in January, February, I always had to plow the field before the year could start. My grandfather insisted that, hey, you've got to plow the field. We usually plow sorghum here, cultivate sorghum and so forth. So it has always been part of me, and coming back and mingling with the community is always the best feeling here.
Quite a thing to go from ploughing to sort of Wits University. And I mean, you might strangely have had more in common with some other young men growing up on farms in the Free State than many other people. I mean, it's a very interesting journey from the village to the city.
Very interesting, Stephen. I'll tell you what was the most shocking thing. I never shared this. Is the swimming pool at Wits when I did my first day in 1995. And I said, what a huge pool. How did these people manage to have so much water being put in a pool like this? I mean, it was just fascinating. And, it was quite a big journey, and having to adapt to the medium and having to even take extra classes to cope with the way of teaching, the rigorous way of teaching at the university. But I can say it's quite doable with determination. It's quite doable, and once you can cross that bridge, you become quite unstoppable as to how far you can go in learning. You learn more and more. And I think it is the discipline of plowing. We grew up looking after cattle, plowing, goats, and everything. So when I went to the university, it was more like, okay, you're just going to read this book from cover to cover. So that sense of discipline continued, and I think that's what sustained my studies throughout.
You worked in government at the National Treasury, if I remember. How did you find that experience? Because I often think that some people who talk about government, you get a sense they really do understand it because they've been within it. And that I've often found is very valuable.
It was a very interesting experience. Before I worked at Treasury, I was a lecturer at the University of the Western Cape. I lectured there for 2 years. And I applied for a job at Treasury. You can imagine, Stephen, I was not a hardcore economist. I was more like economic history, studied finance and so forth. And I got a job at National Treasury as a senior policy analyst within the budget office. That's where we were responsible for doing national budgets. We will compile that thick book called Estimate of National Expenditure. That was very interesting because it also told me that I needed to read more about economics and finance. I don't necessarily have to go and get a certificate, but I had to read more. Luckily, when I was at Treasury, I took out courses on financial analysis, economic analysis, and I just saw it as instead of coming and thinking that I had an impediment, I rather looked at this as an opportunity to learn more. And I will work within National Treasury. From there, I got to understand concepts such as bonds, fixed income assets, and believe me, I once worked for a bank for about 6 months and so forth, where I was dealing with providing analysis for the fixed income assets group. So versatility and multidisciplinary approach to studying is what I enjoy the most. I quickly move from one area to the other without losing the previous area of interest.
I did say to you that I was going to ask you one or two questions about where we are at the moment because there's so much that's fascinating. But our politics is changing so fundamentally. The ANC's National General Council started today. There was a time when that's all everybody would be talking about, even the money show. And now I just get a sense that people don't take the ANC nearly as seriously as they did because of what happened in the elections, because of the longer term trend of sort of fracturing in our politics. How do you see things changing?
You're right, Stephen. If we look at the basic fact that for a long time we were used to referring to the ANC as the ruling party, and we have had to change our vocabulary since last year elections, whereby the ANC is a leader of the coalition. It is governing through a coalition agreement, and that was quite a shocker. A lot has had to change. Even the ANC itself carries on at times as if it is still the party that makes decision on its own in government. And when you look at what is happening, South Africa's politics is evolving, and the ANC itself, I also have to give credit to the ANC that they have not been a sore loser during the election. Well, they will not consider that to have lost now that they are no longer running commanding policy on their own. But I think the party also is evolving to functioning within the coalition. South Africa, you and I, we spoke about political fragmentation. South Africa, it's a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-interest society, and we are seeing political parties evolving along those lines. There isn't a single center of power in South Africa. We have got multiplicity of power, of places of power. That is why the ANC is no longer the only center of power. Of course, it is quite dominant, but now if you pay too much attention to what is happening within the NGC, it might be waste of your efforts, because come next elections, subsequent general elections, the ANC might come back with 31%, 35% if they are lucky. So it is a party that is on the decline, and our attention to what is happening within the ANC also has to shift proportionately in understanding other parties that are emerging and contesting power in South Africa.
If you look, this is an impossible question, Ralph, but on the current trends, if you look at our politics 10 years from now, 2035, what do you see? In my own view, I see a lot more parties. There'll be a lot of churn. Some parties we have now will have disappeared. And I don't know if any one party will have been able to find a way to speak to a diverse set of constituencies.
I mean, I'm gonna take a risk here, Stephen. I see more fragmentation, to be honest, and also I see further regionalization of our politics. That's one area that it's only the Democratic Alliance that has pushed it quite a lot, cementing themselves in the Western Cape, but we are going to see other parties trying to do that. The MK party, with all their troubles, you can refer to them as a regional party, quite dominant in KZN. And I think we are going to see parties emerging also along interest instead of overarching ideas. I mean, some of the issues that are pressing in Limpopo might not be pressing on a similar count in Western Cape or Gauteng, for example. So I see what I call political fragmentation, but it's not an error. It's not something wrong. It is just how our politics is evolving in a manner that the body politics has to shape up in a way that it can attend to multiplicity of interests in our society at the same time. That does not give a picture of a single party consolidating. And I do not even see the leftists, if you like, coalescing into a single dominant force. I see multiplicity of voices. And I think that's one thing that I've always said, Stephen, it's not tragic. It's probably a very interesting evolution of our politics.
Ralph, you followed our politics very closely for a long time. There have been some difficult moments. Have you ever kind of lost hope for South Africa? Have you ever felt unoptimistic about it?
Not really. You know, South Africa is this country, Stephen, that always on the edge, but just never tips over. I mean, if you look at what is happening now with the crisis around governance, capture, multiplicity of captures that one can say is underway, municipalities and state-owned entities, you still see voices coming out. South Africa has strong civil society, and I think that gives us an opportunity to just regain that common sense. You see the commissions. I know that sometimes when you look at another announcement for a commission of inquiry, it feels like not again. But at the end of the day, you realize that the system always tries to reset itself away from the dominant political power. So I'm quite hopeful. And never before, Stephen, have I even personally, to answer your question even more personally, have I thought I'm going to leave South Africa and go live in another country? I just think that the greatest asset about South Africa is its people. They don't have to agree every day, but what they make out of their disagreement, their different takes on where the country ought to go, is something quite incredible. So South Africa, the biggest asset are its people. Its assets, actually, the people of South Africa, I think, they are bigger than their leaders. So my hope is with the people. In pockets, people keep fighting back and trying to reset the country.
Dr. Ralph Mateja is our guest on How I Make My Money. We're talking about his career, the political analyst on The Money Show tonight. We have a few more moments with him. It's 9 minutes to 8.
This festive, when your family gathers, feed them the Nando's Festive Fill-Up meal. Feed Auntie, who's in charge of the key to that storeroom. And feed that niece that makes the strict grandparents do TikTok challenges. And that cousin that watches the same movie that comes in part 1, 2, 3, 4, and many more. Yeah, you can feed it too. Gather them all for the Nando's Festive Fill-Up meal for only $3.99. Eat at Nando's and pay 40 Rand less. Nando's, oh, what a place.
Durbanville Hills is the wine that pairs perfectly with slow summer evenings, listening to your favorite playlists with all your special people in all your favorite spaces. It pairs perfectly with dinner, with friends, or Sunday lunch. It's the wine that pairs perfectly with your story. This summer, treat yourself to any 2 bottles of delicious, award-winning Durbanville Hills from participating retailers, and you could win a 5,000 Rand gift voucher from Durbanville Hills. Not for persons under the age of 18. T's and C's apply.
Some numbers bring instant stress, like a speeding fine, another petrol price hike, or that one debit order you forgot about again. But not all numbers bring panic. Some bring calm and actual life-saving support. With 24/7 emergency support and over 300 ambulances, ER24 is there when you need us most. Don't wait for an emergency. See it, say it, save it. 084 124.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by Absa CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the Absa Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025.
The Money Show. How I make my money.
7 minutes to 8, talking to Dr. Ralph Matech, the political analyst, about how he makes his money. Ralph, I presume you have clients who come to you for political analysis. You, I imagine, get some money from columns and things like that, your books, which we haven't spoken about yet. But I'm hoping you're also making some money from farming. How big a part of your life is that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting area, Stephen. I would say when it comes to farming, I have a competitive advantage because, Stephen, it's one thing I've known about before going into advanced studies. I mean, I've learned about crops when I grew up here. So I decided the last few years just set up what you can call a commercial farm. I just didn't want subsistence because I grew up within subsistence arrangements. So what I did was to try to set up a modern farm with modern irrigation, mechanized irrigation, where we can measure the amount of water that we use and put the necessary infrastructure. And I've been putting infrastructure for the last few years. As people say that if you want to make $1 million out of farming, Stephen, be prepared to lose or put 2 million first. It's quite demanding, capital intensive, but I think where we are, we will be able to start putting high-value crops maybe within a couple of weeks. We have had to work on the land, Stephen. We have had to level the land. We have had to work on the soil. We have had to do the pipeline, just to do it by the book, proper and everything. So it's one of the things that I said to myself when I started working, that one day I'll go back to where I grew up and try to see if we can take this thing to another level. And I'm quite happy. The success might not come through myself and my farming project, but I think some younger people who are coming up and they earn better, they're working, they might see something like that and start thinking that, hey, let's invest in this community in a way that we can change this community into a thriving farming community. Because that's what we've been doing. When I grew up, Stephen, we never bought daily stuff like tomatoes, milli and everything. We all got them from our farm and all, and that meant we had a lot of cash that we did not have to spend, and we could spend it on other important things. So building a commercial farm this side and trying to do it by the book has been my preoccupation, and after that I go read and I go write as I usually do. But it's been quite a fulfilling experience and an interesting journey that I would share more with your listeners some other time. And I can say it requires commitment. You need to be hands-on. You can't argue with the soil. You gotta work on it. You can't. You know, those are things that they change your attitude as to what do you do when you want to work on the farm. You pick a report, Stephen, you read about the trends in agriculture and so forth. But I have to say, it's been an interesting learning experience. We are a couple of weeks from trying to put some butternut, high-value crops, and counting the seeds and everything. It's been a journey, but I'm very hopeful that we will be able to see good returns in the course of the year.
Do you feel this is going to be a very strange question, but following our politics as closely as you have, being incredibly well informed and in the debates around land ownership, you'll remember, I mean, this is an issue I always say, expropriation without compensation is not going to go away. The issue will come back. I don't think it'll necessarily ever happen because our politics is too fractured now, but the issue will keep coming back. Do you feel a sort of...
come back.
Sorry, do you feel a sort of a attachment to your land in a way?
No, Stephen, I have got a realistic approach to the land. I mean, you see, the difficulty in land is to add value to it. Machinery, you need your backhoe loaders, you need excavators to be able to work on the land. So if you look at it, if you have ever spent more time on land and look at the challenges that one confront working on the land, you realize that the bigger part of the debate on expropriation is quite abstract. And interestingly, Stephen, is that most people who are concerned about this debate are in urban areas where there isn't much farming taking place. I mean, if you come to the communal land in rural areas, the land I'm working on, I want to be very transparent. It's a communal land that I acquired. I said I want to develop this land. But the cost of developing it, Stephen, is almost prohibitive. That the bigger part of land, I can give you 10 hectares, it will drain your pocket. And it's about that commitment. So I think the debate that we are having about expropriation, for me, is still abstract because there is a large quantities of land in rural areas that used to be worked on, And now it's just lying idle. Why? Because you need borehole, you need machinery, you need pipes, you need to be able to work that soil, to till the soil, level the soil, and all of those are money. Perhaps in the future, maybe once we have exhausted this piece of land that exists, we will meaningfully, all of us, partake in the question of expropriation. But for me, personally, at this point, if you say to me, Stephen, that you want to give me another 10 hectares of land, it will drive me completely bankrupt. I don't want it. The small piece I have is enough for me to do something about it.
Ralph, it's been amazing to talk to you in such a new way. Thank you so much for coming on The Money Show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ralph Matega, the political analyst and farmer, explaining to you how he makes his money on The Money Show.
The Money Show, Stephen Grootes, is brought to you by ABSA CIB. Discover the latest trends shaping digital assets across Africa. Download the ABSA Africa Digital Assets Insights 2025.
Well, I'm afraid in the US, Wall Street is down. The Dow Jones is down 0.45%. The Nasdaq down 0.33%. The S&P 500 down 0.47% as well. Pretty much all about interest rate expectations and whether or not there will be another cut in rates in the United States. We spoke, of course, about the importance of the Fed in investment school last week. And this week, I'm expecting we'll have a conversation about rates like JIBAR and Zenoria. All of those are things that we will be talking about. I'm looking forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Good evening. It's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening. I'm Maiki Malapo. A family that lost 3 children in a mass shooting in Salisbury in the west of Pretoria says the gunmen entered a bedroom and opened fire on the children. 12 people were killed when 3 attackers stormed a tavern at the Salisbury hostel on Saturday morning. The minors, aged 3, 12 and 16, were sleeping in a bedroom within the tavern. In total, 25 people were shot and several survivors remain in hospital. Alfred Mushana has more.
What once served as a family home and a source of income has now become a site of painful memories after the family lost several loved ones. The living room had been converted into a tavern with bedrooms partitioned using cardboard. The family says the shooters stormed into the tavern and opened fire on patrons before brutally entering the bedrooms and pointing firearms at the minors who were fast asleep in a devastating way.
They stormed in and just opened fire when people were drinking. The children and my sister were sleeping in the bedroom. The shooters made sure that everyone was left dead.
The tavern's owner was also wounded in the shooting, and while she survived the attack, her children were not as fortunate. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
Police have identified 3 persons of interest in the murder investigation of Marius van der Merwe, a witness at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The witness, who appeared at the commission last month under a pseudonym of Witness D, gave testimony about alleged corruption within the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department. He alleged that he was asked to dispose of a body by a suspended EMPD chief, Julius Mkhwanazi. He was killed outside his home last Friday in full view of his family. At a media briefing today, National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola said one of the persons of interest has been taken in for questioning.
It is safe to say investigations are on the right track. The National Joints, together with the Madlanga Commission Security, has met over the last 2-3 days to develop a plan to heighten and enhance security around officials and witnesses linked to the Commission.
ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says the party suffers from a disease of not implementing its policy resolutions. Ramaphosa was speaking at the ANC's 5th National General Council taking place at the